Hey everyone, so welcome for the day 2 of React.js. Okay, so we're going to start from where we left yesterday. Okay, so we just left like we are learning from the concept oriented to the projects. Okay, so we are getting towards the mini data visualization app in code of an image code for the user image code. That is what we're going to build by using simple prompts, and this is going to be the base project for tomorrow's class, tomorrow's workshop. So tomorrow workshop is going to handle with APIs. So today's workshop is going to handle with some fake data, and by using that fake data we just going to render it in the front end, like how this has the props and all work. And after that we use uh, some management like props, how the works, and how the ES6 components we are using, and how to use JavaScript. So that is also we're going to cover today. And after that one more thing is that today's project is going to be the base for tomorrow's project. Okay, so that is how it's everything is correlated. So that is why we're going to start from where we left. Okay, so if you are here, just give a comment, and if you have any doubts in that, just give a comment and we can go with that. Okay, so we can just move into that, and we can see that how we going to do all those things. Okay, so yesterday what we did, yesterday we did like this, right? So this is what yesterday's project. So this is actually what about the yesterday's projects, right? So what we actually done, so we actually done is we know how to structure React file, right? So we delete everything, and by our own we just get started, and we created each and every file, and we came through with the solutions. And after that what we made an component called app.js, and in this app.js we just started to use something like these creature info id, and these will not be used. Just a minute. Okay, we created an app called project 2. Just a minute. Yeah, this is what we created. We just open this folder. Okay, just open the terminal and just go and say npm start to start your React.js server that should be rendered in your browser. Okay, so after doing that, you just have your browser open up and it will be displayed here. Just wait for a few minutes. Right, yeah, this is what we have done yesterday. Okay, so my file has been opened, and actually this is what we have created yesterday. So in the yesterday's class, what we created, we just created like this, and we see what is component and how can we use that usefully, right? So how it is, some of the words like reusable components, we can use reusable components in React, right? So this is something, what this content and content. So what actually this is, so this is something called reusable component, right? So we use that. So in app.js, how many times we want a single component, we just import the component and we just export it, and how many times we want those single component, we just render it, right? So this is what we have done. So if I, like, for example, we need this for n number of times, we can use that, right? We can use, like, you can use whatever, how many times you want, you can able to use that. Okay, so that is actually the theory here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, just go for this component session, and I just go for the body, and here you can notice that the content I'm giving here, it's the same, right? For example, if I say something like name, hardcorely say like this, and if I give something like and so you want to wrap everything with a single element, so I'm just going to wrap it into every single element. And here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to say something like age, and here I just going to be 24. Okay, so thing is, here when I open my browser and see this, you can see like it is dynamically rendered and it will be displayed. Just we do some corrections, like what I'm going to do, body, instead of using this, I just going to say some of the styling parts. Okay, so that is how, that is then only we can understand the props. Okay, so that is what I just going to do. I just going to wrap everything with a div, and I just going to give the style class name body for those div instead of giving for h1. Yesterday we leave that, right? So that is what I done. And the next second thing is we don't want that footer anymore. Okay, so I just going to say like footer. Right now I don't want. Okay, so you can just, if you don't use that footer, then what would happen, it just go for the dull color. Okay, so after that you just see like this is how it's styled. Okay, just consider this is the employee details, and here it's going to be an employee image is there. So just imagine like that. Okay, so what I'm saying, you can notice that. So if I'm using this body component for 3 times, right? So this component for 3 times, and you can notice that whatever the name and whatever the content I'm giving inside this HTML element, the JSX element, so that's the same content that is displaying here. So the reason is why, because it is not dynamic, right? So we don't give any dynamic content. So this is actually we don't want. So what we want, so actually what we want, so here it's going to be the person one name, like his name and his age. And here it's going to be the person two age, like here we need to some other name, like, so this is going to be the employee 1, employee 2, and employee 3. So instead of showing the same day same uh, content, here we need to give a dynamic content. So how can I do that? So here comes that something called as props. So by using the props, we can able to give those components a dynamic content to render, and we can display here. Okay, let's see how can we do that. So props is nothing but it's just like when you heard about JavaScript, there is something called as object, right? So in object there is something called as property, key value parser called property. So that is what we here called as props. Okay, so whatever here, this is considered this component as an object. Okay, so that's it. Consider this component as an object, and you can able to give property to it. For example, I just going to give a property. So I just say name, just give a equal to sign, and whatever the name you want to give, you can able to give here. I just going to say like here the name is going to be Harry. Okay, so this is going to be the person one data here, what we going to render. And here it is going to be the person two name. I just give by default manually, and we're going to see about how we can use some like fake data APIs and how can we render it. That's also we're going to say. And here I just give something like this, and for third data I just give something like this. Okay, so here I just going to say something like this, right? So what I did, so I'm just rendering, where I just use that component, in that place I just called an attribute, right? Nothing but an attribute, an HTML attribute. So likewise I called an property. So whatever we give, so here this is the data that we need to render inside our component. So here it should be Hari, and here it should be Shabari, and here it should be Abdul. So this is actually we want. So how can we do that? So we can able to do that, like whatever we are assigning here, we can pass it to the component which has it. Okay, so we just going to see where the body component, so here is going to be the body component. And to access this, right, so to access this, what we need to access by using the parameters. So here I just say props. So whatever the name you want to give, you can give that, just because like if you give props, it's quite related, right? So I just give props. So now what happened, so the information that the attribute I'm declaring here, a key and value per, this is accessible in the name of props. Okay, so I'm sending this attribute to the props. Okay, so you can give multiple attributes. For example, you can give a space and just give age equal to, and here you can give the like 32, just copy this, paste it here, paste it here. Okay, so multiple attribute, maybe some difference is there like this. Okay, so these all are the some difference that data we need to give. So what we need to do, you just call props, and by calling the props, now what happened, these attributes like these props, these properties, we can able to access it. So how can we access it? So here it comes the syntax of JavaScript. When you want to work with some HTML in JSX, what we do, everything it should have only one parent element, and everything should be wrapped with a single element, right? So that is a condition, and you should not use the reserved words in JavaScript, so you should use something like this, a weird syntax in JSX. So these all are some of the important things to note. The same like this, when you are working with React, so you want to execute a JavaScript function inside this JSX, then what you need, you need to work with this curly braces, like curly braces. So like for example, here is the place where I want to display my content dynamically. How can I do that? So you need to give this curly braces. So whatever you want to give as a JavaScript code, so in this everything should become in the curly braces. So here I just going to say, so where all our properties there, so all our properties or in is paused inside this props, right? So I just call the props, and if I put dot, and you can see we have actually name and ages there, right? So what I'm going to do, I just want a name. Okay, so I just call like this, and after that just go for here and just enter it. You can see the name is dynamically changed, right? So this is the power of here. Let us consider you are building an e-commerce website, right? So you are building an e-commerce website, and you need to show the products of those websites, like something like 10 to 12 products are there, like an you are developing a project for an YouTuber, and he has something like an fashion e-commerce store that you are building, and they have, by starting, when they are starting, they have some products around 10 to 12, and you need to display it in the box, something like this. So in normal HTML and CSS, what we do, we just want to copy it, paste it, and we need to give the image of everything, and we need to display it, right? So actually that is what happening. So but in React, what we can do, we can simply create a component, and we can give whatever the content we need dynamically, and we can able to give them like this. Like here you can see I give Hari, and here I give Sabari, and here Abdul. Okay, the same component, but inside the same component, but what it's going to render, it's going to be different, right? So that is what happened here. You can see that is what happened here. And you can notice that I just only use props.name. Okay, so here age is constant, so that is why everywhere the age is displayed constant. So if I want to use the dynamic age, then what I want to do, I just want to give the curly braces to access the JavaScript, and I just say props dot age. Okay, so here whatever the you are giving, that is what you need to say. And you can see 32 is there, 31 is there, and 33 is there. That's it, right? So that is how we need to render a dynamic content to it, right? Fine. So now we move on to something extra, like we just want to complete this, we just want an image, and we need some data. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I just going to work with some of the image. Okay, so I just go for the unsplash.com, and here I just say for profile photos, some of the profile pics. So I just go and just get the link from that. So I just say profile. So we just going to create it for 3 people. Okay, so let's take this image, copy image address, and what I'm going to do, it is a good practice that you can try it out. So what I just going to do, I just want to add the image of the person. Okay, so just call it image, that's it, image. Okay, so here I need to call the src source attribute, and here whatever we are copying here, we're going to paste it here. If I do this and save this, you can notice we get a very big resources here, like it says like module vendor, babel error, unexpected jss syntax has happened in the react.js, something like this, right? So we just go and read this. Okay, So something is that whenever you are opening the React, you need to close that. When it comes to self, like we can say like self closing tag, we need to do that. And here you can see that image is too big, that is why it just render differently, right? So it's very big. So what I'm going to do, I just go for the CSS part, and we can view an image walk here, okay, inside the body. So we go for the public folder, go for the CSS, and here I just go for here body. Inside the body, I just say body, okay. So I just going to say height, it's going to be 50 pixels, something like this. Not body, inside the body we need the image to be 50 pixel, okay. So we can make this to 120, something like this, fine. And the width is going to be 120 pixel to get a square shape, okay, something like this. And we can make it as border radius 50%. I say position left, top, right, 0%, some styling, okay, to give a decent view, okay. So here we can make position relative, fine. We can view something like here, okay. So we can still reduce the height, and we can reduce the size of this, something like this, okay. It's even more simple, like 3%, and right, it's going to be 3%, something like this. Good, okay. Who does that? Okay, so this is some styling I did, okay. So just go for the app.jss, and here what we did, we just add manually to it. So that is why what happened, everywhere that photos has been rendered. So how we can add this to our component like in props? So what I just going to do, we just minimize this, and we just going to add this, so I just going to say image, that is going to be an image property is there, and I just going to paste it here like this. And we need some other two images too, so we just go and fetch some other images too, okay. Let fetch this too, copy image address, and here I just going to say this is going to be the image tag, and we can paste it here. And I just going to say image tag, it is going to be pasted here, okay. So this is we need something different, right? So we just remove this, okay. Here this is okay. I just go here, copy the image address, and paste it here, okay. So right now we have three different datas, and we have three different things, right? So we need to access, right, we need to access those image inside my src folder, right? So this is something different, right? So we are accessing is inside the component to render, and here we are accessing it for the source. So you just remove this double quotes, you don't need it, just give and something like this, and you can say props dot image, so the same like this. And you can give the alternative, like something like uh, profile, like this, okay. So if I save this, go here to the browser, go for our app, and you can see we have dynamically render our website, right? So but you can notice that this is actually we don't want it, because this is something we don't work with, right? So we actually work with some data, but not with, for example, if a new contact is coming, I'm not going to code this, it should be come manually, right? After adding that to some database, some storing unit, it should come directly, and I need to render that. How can we do that? So for that we need an fake database, or we need an fake like an API and list of data that should be stored. So what I'm going to do, inside this components, I just going to create a file name of contact.js. Okay, so this is what our contact is going to be there. So I just going to say import React from React. This is actually we don't going to use here, but it's fine to use that. Okay, so I just say const, and here I just create contact. Okay, okay, so I just going to create an array. Okay, so in this array I just going to have an object, and in this object I just going to store all my data. So what I'm going to do, just go for the work what we have done, and we just cut this. Okay, we don't no longer we need this. We just cut here and go here and paste it here, change the syntax. So in object it should be something like this. Just give a comma, no equal to, you should give the colon. Okay, so this is consider, this is going to be the data. Okay, so the like something like database, and where inside this database only we going to access it. Okay, so consider something like this. Okay, so I just going to the same like I do for this component, I just going to do for all other components. Okay, so this is going to be a very small project, then you can able to understand the props and also how the ES6 is going to be helpful for us. Okay, so we go with a slow down process, then it's fine. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I just going to change the syntax of everything. Okay, like this, like this, and like this, right? So the next thing is the final data. I just go here and I just go for here and just fetch down this too. Cut this. So right now we have only the components. Okay, only the components. So we separated the data file, right? So that is actually we work with our data or APIs is being in the separate file. Okay, so I already mentioned that today's project is going to be an best practice for tomorrow's working with API, because today we create dummy data, right? So but tomorrow we going to work with some of the online API. Okay, so that this is going to be the demo for that. Okay, so right now just what we just created an array of object instead of object, right? That is what we created, and by using this array of object we going to use what we're going to use inside this component, and we're going to render it dynamically. So right now if I go here, you can see nothing will here, like and don't see the name and the image is broken. This is because you can see in our body we don't want the styling here no more. So in the body we just ask for the props to render the name, but here inside this app actually we don't give any props. So where we need to fetch that props from, we need to fetch this props from this contact.js. So you need to export it first. So I'm just going to say export default contacts contact. That's it. And we need to use in this app.js. So I just going to say import contact from the component contact.js, something like this. And after that we want to use it, you need to know how to access an array and how to access an object, right? So for accessing an array you need to use the square bracket and the index of it. If I say square bracket 0, then it's considered like I'm accessing this one. If I say dot something like that, it is something like I just going to access an object, right? So right now I need the name, I need the image, and I need the what name, age, and image. So just go and render it. So what I'm going to do, I just going to say contact. So that is what we have exported it. So I just going to say contact, and it is an array, and in this array first this is going to be the first component. So I just going to something say like its name is equal to something like this. Okay, okay, so the name is equal to in the contact 0, which means go for the contact and take the first index. This is going to be an object and I need the name of that. So you need to use the dot name. Okay, if I say dot name, something like this, if I save this, just go for here and you can see some contact 0. Okay, sorry for that, I just a minute. Okay, okay, it is showing something like this. Okay, we need to render this contact.js. Export default contact is here, and we don't want to use this, right? Import from the contact. Just a minute. Go here, plugin spec. Just no, this is not a file. Actually, we are here. Okay, so we will find out, right? Something like this. Go here, and what we need name, and we need image, we need age, and we need to pause those contact. Contact 0 dot contact 0 dot. Okay, we just want to pause the contact. Okay, okay, we need to pause the age, we need to pause the image on. Okay, okay, actually we are working with JS, right? So we need to pause something like this, contact something 0 dot name, right? If we render this, we go here and we have the dynamic name. Okay, so likewise we need to copy for all the name, like age equal to something like this. I just want to say the contact in the zero database, we need to go for the age, and for the image we need to access the database, just go for the contact, and you need to give the 0 and just give the image, something like this. If I go here and if I search this, the first one will be come. Okay, so where this data is from, coming from here. And for the second one you need to do the same thing. So if I copy this and if I paste it, and now you can see it is also going to produce the same thing, but I need the person who is in the second data, right? So I just want to change the indexes to the first one, right? Indexes to the first one, something like this, something like this. And I just want to do the same thing for this. The only thing is I just want to change the indexes to be the second one, something like this, right? So if I do this, you can see everything is will be rendered correctly, right? So but actually here also some manual coding is there, right? So what is the manual coding? So the manual coding is I am changing that, right? What I did, I am changing that, I am changing accessing like 0th index, first index, and second index. So how can we automate this? Yes, we can, we need to automate this. So here comes, like if you work with some of the loops concept in JavaScript, the basics, you can understand, like we change this indexes, like, so just consider this is an array and we need to use the loop to access through it, like loop with every indexes and everything. Okay, so here we are not going to use the traditional loops and all. So here in React we just going to use something called as map. Okay, so and also we're going to see about what is the difference between map and for each, and that is what we're going to see here. Okay, so here now what I did, I'm using something but it is rendering, right? But it is, I want to render manually. For example, if I add something, if I add these component, like if I want to add on one more component, I add this. So what would happen, I need to change the index 3, and if someone is added, I need to change the indexes to 4. So how can we automate this? So for automating this, what I'm going to do, I just going to cut this. Okay, so I just going to loop through it. I just going to remove everything here. What I'm going to do, I just going to create another function here. I just say function, and this is going to be called. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, if someone calls this function called return something like those thing. Okay, so return something like those thing. Okay, so you need to return this. Okay, so I just say that this, just consider this is going to be the function. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I just going to use the map method. So for which one we need to map? So for the contact I need to map. So because the contact array contains all the data, so it is going to be map it. Okay, so I just want to use the JavaScript, just use the curly braces and just call the contact, dot map. Okay, so inside this you need to call a function. Okay, so which function I just going to call, I just going to call this chord function, right? So I just going to call this chord function. Okay, if I call this chord function, you can see this map method, what it's going to do, it's going to run this particular function on each and every element in this array. Okay, so and also note one thing, this map element returns an array. Okay, so if I hover over it, you can see calls and define callback and each element of an array, and it is going to be returns an array that contains the result. So every time it returns some value, so that is going to be displayed here. So for that we need to do some extra work here. So what we need to do, so what is the difference here? You can see chord is there. If I call this here, we need to give some parameter. So that parameter is nothing but, so the it is going to be accessed by line from the zeros index, it is going to be accessed. So this is, it is going to access start from the zeroth index, it takes the index. So we need to call some we need to give some parameter, right? So I just say info. Okay, so this is going to be the info, and this right now the info is nothing but the first parameter. So in the info, what we need the name, right? So instead of giving the database index and all, here we can change this to info. Okay, so and also this to info. Now what would happen, so every time we manually render, right? So instead of giving the indexes manually, then now what would happen, we can able to render it automatically. For example, you just go here and you can see there is no difference between the database. And another thing is also here, if I add something new here, for example, consider I'm just going to add this database. Okay, so this database one more time like this. Okay, and you can see it is automatically created, and it doesn't, we need to do that, right? So just imagine like a contact is added and it is stored in database, then what would happen, this front end, this react.js, what it's going to do, it's just going to automatically display in it, right? So same like this, if you have a product and if you have something to do that and you created it and you stored it in the database, you just access the database, and what we can say, we can just render it here. Okay, so how this map method works, so the map method is something that it returns an array. Okay, so that is how it's work. Like for example, just a minute, so what is actually map, and you need to understand what is for each. So most of the people ask a question like, why we don't use for each method to loop through it? Yes, of course you can use it, but by using map, it comes a little bit handier here. For example, if I go for the map method, like this is one of the posts, right? Just a minute. Okay, it is easy to explain. Here you can see how this map method works. So if I want to work with the map method, this is actually it does. So actually in map method, we can able to give a function that is maybe an arrow function or a normal function. Here we give a normal function and we call it. So we can give the function, and what the map method do, so the map method take those function and run in each element, and it returns an array. Here you can notice that the output is an array, right? So the output is an array. So what it does, it just fetch the value from or where we giving, right? So where right now we are in nums. So it take the value and it will work on with the code what we have written, and it returns the value in an array manner, right? So that is what actually here also it does. So if I go for my applications, what we have created here, so consider this is going to be an single component. So this is going to be a single array, so single returned element in an array, and this is going to be a single return element in an array, and this is going to be a single return element in an array. So that is what happened. So if I say context dot map, so what would happen, it is going to be written this card, right? It is going to be written this card, and this card right now have the information of this first one. So then what it do, it just go for the next one. So until unless it gets stopped, like everything in that particular array it's get resulted, so it never going to be stopped, it's just going to render it again and again. Okay, so that is what happened. What if I can use for each? Yes, of course you can use for each, but when you work with the for each method, then what you need to do, you need to create an empty array first, and you need to push, like by using some of the methods in array, and you need to push yourself to the array. Okay, because for each method it doesn't returns an array, so it's only returns a value. Okay, so you need to access those value and you need to send that, right? So that is how the for each method works. For example, a quick explanation I can give, like if I go for JSBin, okay, to explain about the difference between for each and array. If I go for the JavaScript and console, you can see, if I, for example, I just say have let x is equal to something like this, an array is having 1 2 3 4, something like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I say for each, like for x dot for each, and if I say x, just return and x, okay, something like this, just return the x, just with the element and just going to return this. You can see some undefined is going to be happen, nothing is going to be happen because we need to store it. If I try to store something here like this, let x is not x, let y is equal to something like this, there is a weird thing that it is not that, right? For example, if I say like, if I say something like this, it is not going to work, because what would happen, I just say just enter the for each method and returned it, and it is, you need to store it here. Okay, so this is not going to be happen, and if it is happen, it's going to be written. And if you want to work with something like this, then what you need to do, you need to access this element, and before that you need to create something called this, yes, like let y. If you need to return those values in an array, you need to give something like this, and you need to say like x dot push the value of x, something like this, and then you need to say console dot log x. Okay, so this is how you can able to push it. Just a minute. Okay, error, push is not a function. Okay, not x dot push, just want to say y dot push. Okay, here you can see it just created an array, right? So if I run this, you can see it just created an array. So whatever the operation we need to give, for example, if I want to double it, so what can I do, I just go and say something like multiply by 2, something like this, and you can see that it is going to be double it. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to create an empty array, and we need to use some of the array methods, and we need to push it, right? So this is how we normally work with for each method, because this it itself not create something like that. For example, if I say simply like this, okay, so then what would happen, which nothing is going to be happen. Okay, it's just nothing is going to be happen because we don't declare it, right? So we just don't do that, right? So if I say some, like for example here, instead of here, like let y equal to something like this, whatever you are written here, if I run this, it's produce me undefined. The reason is the for each method returns a value, not an array. Okay, so that is the reason. So every time in this in this value is going to be changed, and there is no use of storing it in, and it is going to be tell something like it doesn't have a proper stable value, then it's going to be show like this. But instead of here, if I use map, then what would happen? If I run this, you can see a value. So why? The reason behind is, in map itself creates an array. It just returns an array itself. So how it is work means, whenever a value comes to it, so this value is taken and it is stored in this parameter, and it is go for an operation, and this operation is stored as an value, like as an array. Okay, itself as the first array, and then it's go for the second one, and it creates an array. Okay, so that is how the map method works. Okay, so in learn code, content. Okay, so that's it. So this is how you need to do. So I just don't explain about the CSS part and all, and if you want that, you can just work on it then. Okay, so this is all about maps. So then comes handy, for example, if you want to do something that should have some condition, then what you can do, you can go with filter method. So there are so much of array helper method is available, and we can use that. Okay, so you can use the array filter method, and you can use that too. For example, if you go for something like and something like this filter, and just say card, just pause this function, and here you can just simply give that if the age is greater than 18 or something like that, you give something like this, it will be work on it. Okay, so for example, if I say card, here we go for map only. Okay, so I just go and give what all of the array helper methods are there. Array helper methods in JS. If you go for an image, you can see like around 10 to 12, right? For each, it's going to be written an value of this, and the filter method is going to return a value with the condition. Okay, so it's just going to return with the condition. When the condition becomes true, it will return it. Okay, so that is how this is going to be work. For example, if I say filter x is greater than 2, something like this. If I run this, you can see 34 only written, right? 34 only written. So the reason behind this, if I say x is equal to greater than 2, and it's go here, now it check for 1. If 1 it's returns, it is going to be false. If when it is false, then it is not go inside that array, so it will leave that. And if I say like 34, and it is go there because it is bigger than 2, right? So that is how it works. For example, if I say 1, then you can see 2 and 4 will be here, 2 and 34 will be here. Okay, so this is how this works. So the thing is that each array helper methods have little bit functionality, and by using that we can use this. For example, we can use the filter method to filter the categories. For example, you want only the fruits category, or you want only the toys category, or only the gadget categories. If you type here, it will check with those, like whether it has some gadgets and all, and you just use that. Likewise, it check that, and it will returns, like you go for Amazon, and you can see something like something options, you can have a search bar, right? So in the search bar, what we did, we just go and search it, and what happens, we would get some of the related information beyond the search data, right? So this is how the filter method works. So by using the filter method, you can able to work something like this. Okay, so this is going to be that. Okay, so this is all about the projects for today. Okay, so what I need, so you just want to work on with this props property, and you need to create something called as a fake image and fake something like contacts and all, and you need to render it in your application. Okay, so that is very simple. And also I just use a very bad styling here, and you just work with your own styling, and you can, if you want to create some styling and all, and you just give your own. Okay, so I don't do that. Okay, so just give your own styling and make this as much as perfect, and try to give 10 to 12 datas, and just work on it. Okay, so that's it. Okay, something like this, and if whatever you want to name, and you need to give a phone number, name, email, and whatever you want to give, you just give that and you can work on that. Okay, so this is something like working with React, only the props. Okay, so there is something called as hooks is there, and something called as like the custom hooks is there. So much of things is there. That is what we're going to see tomorrow. And tomorrow what we're going to see is we going to work with the real-time API. So instead of working with something called as JavaScript API, here you can see some of the context that I created personally. Instead of that, we just go and work with something called as Pokemon API. Okay, so this is Pokemon API where we get some of the information related to Pokemons. Okay, so we just going to create an application, a code generator, by using this Pokemon API. Okay, so just look into it. So you can see something like an object, an array, something like that, right? So for this use case only, we actually need this. So that is why I just taken this as a project. For example, you can see we can previously we see about how to access an array, how to access an object. The same like this, here it also everything is an array inside an object, and we need to find out whatever the data we need. For example, we need a name of the Pokemon, and whether we need the URL of the Pokemon or height of the Pokemon and all, we just going to work on it. And instead of importing something like this, for example, you can see we just created a fake data and we just import it. But in case of work with some API like this, it is not. We're going to use fetch it to work on it, and we're going to see about what is async and await, and how to use the fetch API, and how to produce this code generator and all. Okay, so that is what we're going to see about. And we're going to, if we have some time, what we're going to do, we're just going to work with the Postman, a tool that will just simply you can see here, right? It's a tool. So that will just going to give comes handy when we work with the API. Okay, so we just not going to work with all the post requests and get requests by using this Postman API. We just going to see that how it is working, like inside this what is there, inside that what is there. So that is what we're going to see tomorrow. Okay, so this is actually what we're going to build. Okay, so that's it for today. Okay, so let's go for some of the doubts, and we can make it available. And you can see this is very basic understanding in React. Okay, so very basic understanding when you work with React, and most people gets confused when they work with the props and when they work with the states. So that is why I just don't touch the states, and we just going to see the what is states, like what is hooks, like what is use states and what is hooks, right? So that is actually we're going to touch it differently. So the only thing is this is all about props, and this is all about ES6, and this is how you need to work with JavaScript in JSX. Okay, so there is another way of importing this styles in here. So instead of using the style.css in the body, what we can do, we can import in the React.js itself. Like if you use the import style from /public, or you can just use the style inside this also. Okay, style like this, and you can use this and you can import it. Oh, you just don't want to do this, this is how you need to import this, and you just import directly like this. Okay, it's not styles, it's styles, I think. You turn them to import a different directory, so you can paste the styles, you just copy the styles and you can paste in somewhere else in the this page, and you can render it. Okay, so anything, this is also you can able to do that. Okay, so by working with the styles you can able to do that. That is how. Okay, so tomorrow we just going to see about how to work with the React.js code generator by using the Pokemon. That is what we're going to see about tomorrow. And today is very simple project that we need to cover it in yesterday itself, but because we explained more that we are not able to cover, and we just cover it today itself. Okay, so the project is just do a call generator and give a decent styling for today, and just come up with this applications. Just you need to show your contacts in your here, like their name, their phone number, and their age, and their photograph in the left side. Okay, so that is what you need to do. And after completing this, just fill out the form and we can move it. Okay, just you fill out the form. This is very simple, very simple project. Even it is not a project, just a concept. Okay, so you can be able to do that. Okay, so I think this will be helpful for you. Okay, right? So if you have any doubts regarding this, you can ask me now. Okay, we can go for it. And the form, like applications forms, right, where you can submit this project, and that will be in the chat box. Okay, so I just give that will be in the chat box, like in the description of this video. You can check the description of the video and you can have it, right? So that's it. Okay, so if you have any doubts, you can ask now. Just a minute.